Hey guys, it's been a bit over 4 months since I've cleaned the FX6 in my 125 gallon community tank. Let's crack this bad boy open and see what it looks like. One of this trick, it's always best to put a container underneath of your FX6 or your FX4, your canister filters, in case you have a leak. You can catch it before it becomes a disaster, especially if you're like me and you have your aquariums in your house. As you can see here, this is also nice because I can just slide the whole thing out, and when I release the hoses, you always get a little water that squirts out. That's not an issue because it catches in this tote before I pull it out. So let's pull this thing out and let's crack this thing open, and I'll show you my process of cleaning these things with a couple little bonus tips. As you can see, all the debris and plant matter and stuff coming out of it into the bucket is a pretty good sign that it was time to get some rinsing. But I can run these things 7 months before I really have to do anything. But let's open it up, see what it looks like. So this is the only filtration for this tank. There is no secondary filtration. Now, what I'm mainly looking for is the last time I cleaned this thing out, I had a massive colony of snails that had grown in here. So far from what I'm seeing, it's not as bad as last time. I mean, this filter was just covered with snails. I do see some on top of the lid. As you can see, all those little dots are snails. And you can see all the dead snail shells here. Let's take this outside and I'll show you my process for doing these things to keep sand and stuff out of the plumbing in your house. So what I like to do is I have a table set up over here outside my backyard next to my garden hose. And I clean all my canister filters out here because all my tanks are sand. And sand gets inside these filters regardless of what you do. It's worse with some tanks, depends on your fish species. But let's have a look. It's not near as bad. I could have let this go and not cleaned it, but I do have a lot of plant matter build up, so we will go ahead and clean it. I do have it out. Now, when I clean my filters, I do go ahead and just use tap water. My tanks are strong and mature at this point, so the little bit of bacteria that the chlorine and chloramine in your tap water will kill, it's not enough to worry about it because not all of your good bacteria just is in your filter, it's everywhere. And I only do the sponge filters in the trays in the canister itself. I rinse them out. But I do not spray off my biofilter media. I just leave that be because it's not even dirty. So let's go ahead and get these sponge filters cleaned out and get this thing back together. You can see how gunked up that impeller is. Always important to not forget to do this step as well. The inside there. And for this, I bring my toothbrush and I'll put the water on like a trickle here. That's all you need is a little bit of water like that. Make sure you get where the seal sits. And if you watch my videos on my channel, I just put a video out on awesome tools to have to make things easier. And if you watched it, you remember seeing this. It's just perfect for this. Now the next thing I like to do while I have it apart, and I might do this more than most people, but it's not a bad thing, is I like to clean and lubricate my O-rings. But because I do this more often than most people, I very rarely have problems with leaks. And I just put a little bit of food grade super lube O-ring sealant, and I just go around and put it on there before I put it back together. If people did this step a little bit more often, you would find you'd have way less leaks. If you go years without lubricating these seals, they become brittle and dry and they crack, therefore you don't have a seal, then you get your leak, right? Doing it this way, you very rarely have that problem. So, let me get the motor and impeller assembly back together on this thing, and we'll move on to the next step. Another thing I wanted to point out during this process is when you're using taking out any of the screws and you're putting them back in, it's very important not to over tighten these. You're talking about putting metal screws into plastic threads, very easy to strip out. And so you just tighten it down until it's snug and stop. And the same goes for the locking thumb screws up here at the top. Tighten it until you're good and snug, and I always tighten it in a star pattern and then stop. You're gonna save yourself a lot of headaches if you do that. Another point regarding the drain valve here. Anytime you turn this open when you drain it and you're done and you're cleaning and you're putting everything back together, when you go to close this again, anytime you hear or feel grit in there, these will pop off, and you can take this stuff apart, this valve apart, and clean it. There's seal in there, you can see lube as well, and just make sure that's in good working condition to prevent leaks as well. A lot of people forget or overlook that too. As long as you maintain your filters correctly a couple times a year at a minimum, you're going to be fine with these canister filters unless something detrimental happens. Next, I go ahead and pull the big O-ring out of the lid of this thing, and I clean it and I lube it as well. Just get you a damp paper towel. Just go around. I can still feel some lube on it from when I did it probably a year ago. But I like to make sure that any debris or anything's off of it. And I will do this maybe 3 times a year. Fluval recommends, I think, 1 or 2 times a year. Most people don't even bother to go to do this work, but that's where you run into problems. If you do this 2-3 times a year, and you lube these seals, and you keep these seals nice and supple, they can never dry rot, they can never crack. That's why I like to do it a little bit more often. I watch a lot of videos about people blasting canister filters and how they suck because they always leak and it's a problem, blah blah blah. But when's the last time you did this process? We have to look at ourselves, and before we blame the tool, let's check out the operator. Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? I got that all lubed up. Let's get it back in there, and then we're going to get this thing back together. Another thing to note is where the O-ring goes in this groove right here. Make sure there's no grit or anything in there. What I'm finding is snail eggs. But whether it's snail eggs or grit or anything, what I like to do is I take a paper towel and a flathead screwdriver, and I jam that paper towel down in that groove, and I just wipe it all along, all around, like that. Easiest way to get down in there and get anything out. If you don't get all the stuff out of that groove where that O-ring seats into, it's going to lift the seal up and cause leaks. And once you've done this process enough times, it's easier than it even looks on this video. But I had to put that in there real quick. Alright, now we're going to fill this canister filter back up with some water. I got a bucket here, I've got fresh water in it that I have dechlorinated. You don't have to fill it up the whole way, maybe 3/4 and you're good to go. And that's it. Then we close our thumb screws. And I always like to tighten them. I just go around and get them all tight where I start feeling a little resistance on all of them. Once I have that, then I go ahead and tighten them in a star pattern. And I like to do that because when it tightens the lid down, it's going to seat the O-ring in an even fashion all around. So I'll just go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And while you're doing this, you can feel which one's tighter and looser, and you know, just account for that. pick up the slack on one end to the other. And now I just, I just feel for the tension and the tightness, tightening it so they feel the same all around. And you don't have to over tighten these. You do not want to over tighten these. You strip them out. Very important. And I hear about people complaining about these breaking all the time. I just don't have issues like that because I take my time and I do these processes as I have shown in this video, with the lubing and the cleaning and being very careful how much torque I put on all the screws and everything, and that is good. I also lube the seals here as well. Let's go ahead and get this thing back in the tank and running. All right, we got it back in place. Now the first thing you want to do is open the left valve first and then the right. You want to open up the in and then the out. Before you plug it in, left and right, open the valves, and you'll hear it. It's going to go here in a minute. Usually it'll bubble and burp and fill up, but sometimes if it doesn't do that, what I will do is go ahead and plug it in and then unplug it real quick. At any rate, it's okay. We'll go ahead and plug it in because these things purges the air out of their systems themselves. It does it every 12 hours automatically. When you first plug it in, it'll start up and it will stop, get all the air out of the system, and then run as normal. During that time, after the cleaning, I like to get my flashlight and just make sure I don't have any leaks. Everything sounds right and we're running good. See all that gunk coming out of there after that cleaning? That happens every time, but it's no big deal. It's just the residuals that was in the hoses and stuff like that. Headlamp from my tool video. Okay. It has shut off. You can hear it purging now. I did not see any leaks during that time it was running. And then this thing will fire up all by itself and we're good to go. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the first time I've ever made a video doing an FX6 canister filter cleaning, but I wanted to show my process and how I do things. I'm always going to find the easiest ways to do things and the most efficient ways to do things. I don't worry about hooking that line it comes up with, that hose, and connecting it to the drain valve and draining it out. I just slide it out and I pick it up. Now, if these things are too heavy for you when they're full of water, you can by all means drain it out using the hose it comes with. But for me, I find it easier to just pick it up, drain it into a bucket, and then I take it outside to do all my cleaning because, like, this tank that we showed here in the video didn't have any sand in the filter. But the FX6 that runs this Tiger Oscar tank, those Oscars are always digging in the sand. Same with these Imbonas. There's always a little bit of sand, and it's very important to keep that out of your home plumbing. You don't want that in your plumbing. If it builds up in there over time, you're going to have an issue. So all my sand goes out there and gets rinsed out, and I never have an issue with that gunk in the house clogging up my internal pipes. So that's it. Let me know if you liked the video. If you have any suggestions or questions or would like to see a video on anything else involving the aquarium and fish keeping hobby, let me know in the comments because I'd most certainly like some new ideas to make some videos for what you guys want to see. So, well, that's it. You be safe. You have a good rest of your week, and I hope everything treats you just kind as it can be in this world. Bye.